evening to everyone in the gallery and those joining us online this evening. My name is Councillor Mohammed Semra, Mayor of Maribyrnong City Council, and I welcome everyone to the May 2026 Council meeting. I declare the meeting opened at 6:33 p.m. Maribyrnong City Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land, the Wurrung and Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nation, and pays its respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I remind everyone to switch their phones to silent, and I advise the gallery that this meeting is being recorded and will be available on Council website. All care is taken to maintain your privacy, however your presence may be recorded. In accordance with governance rules, meetings may be photographed, filmed or recorded. If you are not okay with this, please let it be known. Unless you have the approval of the Chief Executive Officer. I advise there are no apologies for today's meeting. Councillors, are there any leave of absence requests? In accordance with Local Government Act 2020, do any councillors have a conflict of interest in relation to any of the agenda items? See there?
A conflict of interest. I have a general interest. Sorry, Mayor.
Yep.
Yes, I do have a general interest in relation to one item, item 10.5.
Yep. We now move to public question time. Public question time is managed in accordance with Council's governance rules. Members of the public can submit a maximum of 3 questions prior to the commencement of the meeting. As Chair, I will decide who answers the question. Public question time is limited to 15 minutes unless councillors consent to extension. We'll now begin. Question 1 from Ash Brown. At the April meeting, all councillors voted for a motion listing the many benefits of bike infrastructure. Residents place high importance on this in all consultation. What are the root causes of the council failing to build any projects from its 6-year-old bike strategy? Can I get the Director for Infrastructure to please respond?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. The Bicycle Strategy 2020 identified an ambitious program at a high level, and whilst ambitious, several key projects from the strategy have been delivered, including making permanent the pop-up bike infrastructure that was put in place temporarily during the COVID lockdown period. 2, implemented many 40-kilometre-hour zones across the municipality to lower the speeds on our roads to improve safety for bike riders. 3, improved cycling conditions on several distributor roads such as Somerville Road, Mitchell Street and Rosman Road. 4, installed approximately 100 bike hoops across the municipality, resulting in around 200 bike parking spots. 5, installed multiple repair stations, such that Maribyrnong now has more repair stations than any other council. And 6, installation of separated bike infrastructure on Hyde Street.
Question 2 from Ash. The bike strategy includes regular updates on progress. Have these updates been done? If so, where are they? Can I get Director of Infrastructure to respond?
Yes, and thank you, through you, Mayor. Progress has been tracked internally. However, it's acknowledged that public updates have not been provided as consistently as proposed in the strategy. This has been recognised as a gap and will be addressed in the draft integrated transport strategy.
Through you, Mayor, could I add to that? Each quarter, the Council does report on its financial position and the Council plan actions. So those projects that were Council plan actions are relating to bike infrastructure are reported on quarterly through that financial and operational report, and we've actually got one of those reports here tonight.
Question 3. If not, how do councillors expect to hold the council administration accountable to the will of the residents? If any councillor wants to respond, they can. Otherwise, we will go to the next question. We'll go to D. Ferreira. Question 1. A unanimous vote was passed at the Beavers Reserve and Coronation Street proposals and saw zero regard for the overwhelming opposition to these projects by residents. Why did you vote to go ahead despite this and contradict your customer first policy? Can I please get the Director of Infrastructure to respond?
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mayor. Council officers undertook a rigorous engagement process supported by expert input to inform recommendations for both concept designs. Consideration extended beyond the immediate street to the broader neighbourhood and suburb, and in fact people from across the municipality had an opportunity to comment, and this aligned with Council's open space strategy in recognition of the need to increase the footprint and access to high quality open space in Kingsville and Seddon. Council does not agree that there was overwhelming opposition, and the consultation report shows this with about a 50-50 split. However, we do agree that not all residents were supportive. Councillors have due consideration to a range of views, but ultimately we have to make decisions in what we regard as the overall best interest for the whole community.
We'll go with question 2 from D. What justification steered councillors to vote unanimously to Beavers Reserve and Coronation Street projects despite every tested metric showing categoric opposition to both proposals? And what remediation do residents have given your unbridled determination to proceed? I might answer this one. I'd say Council undertook a 2-stage engagement process to inform the development of concept plans and to test recommendations prior to Council consideration. As an opt-in process, it primarily attracted participants with strong views. This was balanced with expert advice to inform the final recommendation. Further engagement will be undertaken on the proposed road closure in accordance with the Local Government Act, along with targeted design engagement for the proposed toilet development. We'll go to question 3 from D. Council has demonstrated that the wishes of the community hold no importance or weight in decision-making processes. Why did Council spend $64,000 in plans despite knowing of strong opposition to these plans? It has misrepresented the community and not followed proper process. Can I also get the Director of Infrastructure to answer?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Kingsville and the neighbouring suburb of Seddon are identified as priority areas in Council's 2023 Open Space Strategy Update. Due to limited provision of public open space, the strategy outlines specific directions for each of these reserves. For Beavers Reserve, a major upgrade is recommended to enhance social interaction and support unstructured recreation. For Bell Reserve, the strategy proposes investigating opportunities to expand the size of the reserve through a potential road closure, increasing capacity and usability. So the associated funding that the questioner asked reflects Council's commitment to implementing its endorsed open space strategy.
Yep. Question from Chris Walton. 1, will Council publish the support oppose unsure figures for the Beavers Reserve toilet and Coronation Street closure from consultation channels, and state how those results were summarised and put to councillors before the 21st of April 2026 vote, rather than in public reports? Can I get the Director of Infrastructure to respond?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So that information has been published. The Council report considered on the 21st of April 2026 summarises the outcomes of the community engagement process and includes a 16-page engagement summary report. That report provides a detailed account of the feedback received, taking the raw data and analysing it. It also includes summaries of emails, phone calls and in-person events.
Question 2 from Chris. What traffic modelling and CPTED safety assessments did Council rely on to approve the Coronation Street closure and Beavers Reserve toilet? And will those documents be publicly released so residents can see the predicted impacts and any mitigation that justified it? Could also get Patrick to answer.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. An independent traffic assessment was prepared and it considered the impacts of the proposed closure of Coronation Street in Kingsville. The assessment is included in the public report and is available on Council's website. The principles relevant to the proposed toilet at Beavers Reserve will be addressed through the detailed design phase, including consideration of layout, siting and lighting.
Question 3. Council consulted on Beavers Reserve. Residents opposed the toilet and Coronation Street closure, yet both were approved unchanged. How is going ahead against that feedback and leaving residents to deal with the impacts consistent with calling this a community-led project? You can also get Director of Infrastructure to respond.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. It's similar to the previous question, so it'll be a similar response, but also just wanted to reiterate that residents, it wasn't clear one way or the other in terms of opposition. Council officers undertook a rigorous engagement process supported by expert input to inform recommendations for both concept designs. Consideration extended beyond the immediate street to the broader neighbourhood and suburb, which aligns with Council's open space strategy in recognition of the need for increase the footprint and access to high quality open space in Kingsville and Seddon.
We have a question from Ming Lee. I was out having dinner in Footscray on Saturday night and walked down Irving Street. There was a festival in the car park which had fenced off the car park and footpath. Was this approved by Council? Can I get the Director for Planning and Environment to respond?
Thank you, Mayor. And through you, yes, the Sleepless Festival was funded by Council through its Signature Festivals and Activations Grants program.
Yep. Thank you, Mike. And I was there myself, and it was an amazing opportunity for our community to come together to celebrate, local bands and activate spaces within the CBD. We'll go question 2 from Ming. The fence around the car park was 2 meters high and had fabric and signs covering from bottom to top. How does a walled-off festival do anything to activate Central Footscray? You can also get Director of Planning to respond.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, bless you. Council supports events as a way to attract visitors to Central Footscray, increasing foot traffic and supporting surrounding traders, hospitality venues and local businesses. And while some fencing is required for safety and event management, these events can still contribute to the broader activation of the area by drawing people in who then spend time across the wider precinct. Council will continue to work with organisers to ensure events deliver strong value both within and beyond the event site.
Question 3 from Ming. The fence went past the laneway and out the front of properties fronting Irving Street. This fence blocked the footpath, meaning my friend who has limited mobility couldn't walk past. The event organiser said to walk on the other side. Does the council think this is okay? You can also get Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, simply no, we don't think this is okay. Council expects event organisers to maintain a safe and continuous accessible path of travel for pedestrians, including people with limited mobility. In this instance, the footpath on the south side of Irving Street remained accessible. However, the direction to simply walk on the other side was not an appropriate response. As part of the event debrief, officers will remind the organiser that public pathways must remain accessible wherever possible. Where fencing or other event infrastructure cannot be moved, clear signage must be provided to direct pedestrians to a safe and accessible alternative route.
Question from Brian Sanderson. Question 1, can the Planning Director please outline what action has been taken to remove illegal roller doors in the Footscray CBD? It has been 6 months since Council resolved to resume action, and the issue is getting worse, not better. Get Planning Director to please respond.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, and thank you, Mr Sanderson. Council employs a coordinated response to improve the presentation of shop fronts and roller shutters across the Footscray CBD. We're recognising the impact that solid roller doors have on amenity, safety and activation. This includes a facade improvement and shopfront refresh program, working directly with traders and property owners to improve roller shutter presentation, increase compliance with preferred treatments and uplift the overall streetscape. This approach is part of Council's broader CBD revitalisation work, which focuses on improving amenity, activation and visual quality, recognising that these factors are key to addressing the issue and delivering a more sustained change across the precinct.
Question 2 from Brian. Is the Planning Director aware that private landowners can initiate planning enforcement action and seek to recoup these costs from Council for failing to execute their legislative responsibilities? Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, private landowners cannot directly enforce planning laws in the same way Council can, but they do have the ability to initiate action by applying to VCAT for an enforcement order where a breach is occurring. In practice, most matters are still progressed through Council, which has the primary responsibility and broader powers to enforce the planning scheme.
Question 3 from Brian. Is the CEO aware of the planning department's stance, which appears to be taking no action to implement a resolution to council? Celia?
Thank you, Mr Sanderson. Council staff I can confirm that council staff continue to work with traders across Footscray CBD to encourage them to take up the opportunity to replace solid roller doors with safer options to reduce graffiti and improve the amenity of the area.
Question from Cheryl Nichols. Question 1. In Star Weekly, concerned and upset residents regarding council's proposed changes to beavers and bell reserves. Why has there been no consideration of the impact on residents most directly affected by the proposed toilet and beavers reserve and closure of Coronation Street for bell reserve? Can I please get Director of Infrastructure to respond?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So again, this is a question regarding engagement. I think we've covered that in previous questions. Just to note that council does consider that residents both on the street and across the suburbs have been engaged appropriately.
Question 2 from Cheryl. Councillors, we've reached our 15 minutes. Can I get a councillor to move a motion to extend time for 15 minutes? Councillor Lamb. Can I get a councillor to second? Councillor Elena. We will extend time. Councillors, can I get you all to vote, please? Raise your hand. Question 2. Mayor Semra acknowledged that the majority of residents have opposed the toilet and beavers reserve, but whole community views are more diverse. Why does this go against the Pick My Park funding goals of more local community agreement? I'll answer that one. Council has been awarded funding through the Pick My Park program to improve Beavers Reserve with a new play space, an upgraded active area, a new shelter with barbecue, and an enhanced layout that maximizes greenery and open space. Construction of public toilets and road closures are not part of the scope of this funding program. Council's application for Beavers Reserve upgrade project include detail of several forms of community consultation relevant to the project scope and demonstrated reflection on community. Feedback in the project design which satisfied the community engagement criteria. Question 3. Mayor Semra stated that council offered to meet with concerned residents. No resident surrounding Beaver Reserve has been consulted with. Can you please tell us when this will occur so we can attend? Can I get Director of Infrastructure to respond?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So whilst council have adopted the concept plans of both reserves, construction related to the public toilets and the road closure will not occur until future years, so until the budget's adopted for their construction. So therefore it would be premature to undertake any further consultation at this current point in time, but residents will certainly be further engaged at the next stage of project planning.
Question from Alison Boast. 1. What specific risk assessment has council conducted regarding antisocial behaviour and safety risk the proposed Beavers Reserve toilet poses to nearby families and children on the Raleigh Street, and will it be publicly released?
Mayor, can I suggest all 3 questions perhaps be called out because they're all relating to the public toilets and we give one answer?
Yep.
Thank you.
Question 2. What maintenance and monitoring commitments will council put in place to prevent antisocial behaviour at the Beavers Reserve toilet, and who is specifically accountable when incidents occur near residents and children? Question 3. Council states the toilet will use CPTED principles relying on natural surveillance. Has council assessed how this surveillance burden impacts Wells Street families with young children living immediately adjacent to the facility? Can I get Director of Infrastructure to please answer?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So those 3 questions are related to public safety, and any assessments associated with public risk and antisocial behaviour will be undertaken through the design phase and also will be considered through the update of council's public toilet strategy. Further, in council's experience, feedback from local residents of like facilities in similar locations across the municipality has by and large been very positive.
Question from Edward Merrifield. Question 1. Given council has financially supported the Salvation Army Outreach Cafe in prime Footscray CBD location, where local traders, nearby residents and businesses formally consulted prior to this decision? And if not, why not? Response, please, by Director of Planning.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you, the Salvation Army Outreach Cafe is predominantly funded by the state government with minimal financial support from the council. It will deliver an important community benefit by supporting vulnerable members of the community and strengthening social inclusion in the Footscray CBD. As it is a permissible use, there is no requirement or trigger for the formal consultation.
And what is the intended duration of the operation, including whether it is proposed as a temporary trial or ongoing long-term initiative, and what measures will Council use to assess its impact on surrounding traders, public amenity, cleanliness and community safety? Can also get Director of Planning to respond.
Thank you, Mayor. The timing, scope and ongoing operation of the Salvation Army Outreach Cafe will be led by the Salvation Army in partnership with the state government. It is not structured as a council-run trial with a defined end date. Council's role is limited to supporting the activation of the site, and the initiative is intended to form part of the broader, coordinated and ongoing response to vulnerability in the Footscray CBD.
Question 3, were alternative locations considered before selecting this site, particularly locations with existing shower, hygiene and toilet facilities that may have been more appropriate to support users of the surface?
Thank you, Mayor. It's understood that a number of locations were explored by the Salvation Army. The final choice of location is perhaps a matter for them to explain, but I'm sure it had much to do with the services offered at the cafe.
Thank you, Mike. With that being said, I declare public question time closed at 6:55. Councillors will now move to agenda item 6.1, confirmation of minutes. I'll call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Meredith.
Thank you. That council confirms the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 10th of March 2026.
I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Lam. Are there any questions or points of clarification? Did the mover want to speak to the motion? No. Second want to speak to the motion? I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillor Meredith. Samantha. I declare the motion carried. Move to agenda item 6.2, confirmation of minutes, 21st of April. I'll call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Yengi. Call for a councillor, sorry.
On 21st April 2026.
Call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Thomas. Are there any questions or points of clarification? I'll now put the motion to a vote. I declare the motion carried. Move to agenda item 7.1, Local Government Working Group on Gambling. Update from Councillor Bernadette Thomas. I invite Councillor Thomas to provide an update.
Thank you. I'll just find my notes. Apologies, I closed them down. So I'm the council representative on the VLGA's Local Government Working Group on Gambling, and we meet every 3 months, I think 2 or 3 months online, and it's open to all councils who are members of the VLGA. It's a really informative information sharing working group, and we often hear from experts who are doing research into the impacts of gambling, and in the last meeting we did actually hear from Professor Samantha Thomas from Deakin Uni about the federal government responses to the gambling advertising reforms, and she gave us quite a few I guess reasons why the reforms fell well short of what was being asked in the you win some, you lose more Senate inquiry and the report that came out of that. And I do just want to mention a couple of those things. I won't go on for too long, but what she mentioned was that partial advertising bans may continue to normalise gambling and redistribute the exposure, that there's strong concerns remaining around stakeholder influence and industry lobbying, and that discussion reinforced prevention-focused public health approaches rather than personal responsibility framing. So that was the discussion that we had amongst the group. So I think with those reforms that the government did release, there's still a way to go in terms of their effectiveness, and whilst it's a good start, it's really not responding in the way that the you win some, you lose more report was the recommendations that were in that report. We also heard from the Department of Justice and Community Safety around BetStop, which is where you can go online and list yourself to be banned from online betting agencies. So, but what we were told was there's still low awareness remaining around this, so it's a major challenge for people to one, know about it, and then two, go online and list their name on there. And then we just had an update about proposed gambling regulations and regulatory reform. There are some regulation reviews currently underway. The VLGA is making a submission to that. And during the discussion, there were some concerns raised about underweighting the gambling harm in decision making, so not really seeing the types of harm or the spread of harm, and that harm is not simply related to the person who is gambling, but it also has an impact on their family, their friends, their work colleagues, the community that they live in. So, and that harm and trauma can kind of, extend for quite some time. So that review is underway, and hopefully council will be able to put in a submission to that. So yeah, I haven't in the past given an update, but I will try and make them more regular, so that everybody kind of knows that council is across what's happening in the gambling harm and prevention space. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, and we'll look forward to future updates. I want to advise councillors that there are no petitions to be tabled at this meeting. There were also no planning reports to be tabled at this meeting. We move to agenda item 10.1, quarterly performance and financial report, period ending 31st of March 2026. I'll call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Yengi.
That council notes the quarterly performance and financial report for the period ending 31st March 2026, shown at attachment 1.
Call for councillor to second the motion. Councillor Meredith. Are there any questions or points of clarification? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Second, would like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I will now put the motion to a vote. I declare the motion carried. Agenda item 10.2, Yarraville Oval Master Plan. I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Tawari.
That Council 1 endorse the release of the draft Yarraville Oval Master Plan shown at attachment 5 for community feedback, and 2, request a further report and final master plan for consideration following the community engagement process.
I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Meredith. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I think there's a lot of positives in this master plan for the community, and most importantly, it helps secure the long-term future of cricket at this historic ground and strengthens the pathway for local juniors to move into senior sport and keep local participation growing. The plan would also open up the reserve much more than it is today by removing sections of the existing mounding around the oval, for those that know it. That means better visibility, better access, and a more usable space for the wider community. It also supports the idea of a proper multi-purpose facility that can be used by cricket in summer, footy in winter, and Yarraville West Primary School during the school hours. I think that's a much better use of the community infrastructure. There are also plans for improved social and community facilities for one of the biggest sporting clubs in our municipality, which is long overdue. And one thing I particularly like is a proposed walking track around the reserve. At the moment, a lot of the space feels closed off unless you're directly involved in sport. This would help make the reserve more welcoming for everyday use, passive recreation, walking, and for families. And the plan also includes opportunities for more tree planting along the school and Anderson Street, which would improve shade and make the area greener and more pleasant. So overall, this is about making Yarraville Oval more open, connected, accessible and useful for the whole community and not just organised sports. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tapari. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Yep, just briefly, I encourage the community at home and Yarraville West Primary School as well to get involved and have a look at the plan and have your say. I think it's really important to have your say on the master plan, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Murdo. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Who's going to go first?
I'll raise you.
Councillor Crowe.
No, I was going to add, we obviously welcome a lot of feedback on this. I think it's an exciting opportunity to enhance this space. There's a lot of things already happening in here, and I think that's exciting opportunity for the community because lots of people from a family can use lots of different spaces simultaneously. I think the greening around the back of the oval in the interface between the oval and the school is a really good opportunity to enhance passive use of this space, and so I'd be particularly interested to know what other things will help make that space more usable for visitors to the area. We're really keen to make sure that we've got all the elements right in this precinct.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Thomas.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm probably a little less enthusiastic about this design, I think, than other councillors are. I think there's some good additions with the track around the oval and the additional tree planting. But I think this current option, there's only one, there's no other option to compare it to, overlooks a couple of things. And I think the main thing for me is the use of what I call social recreation space as taking over social recreation space for sporting space. So the cricket nets have been proposed to replace the only practical, viable, used social recreation space on the site, which is shaded, which has seating, which has a water fountain, and which is open to Anderson Street. Options 1 and 2 in the paper have been deemed not feasible in part because of contaminated soil. And this is not an uncommon occurrence in Maribyrnong, and Council regularly encounters this with capital projects, but it doesn't stop us from proceeding. So I think those, to discount that sort of out of hand immediately without doing any further investigation is something we probably need to reconsider. I think the alternative option that's presented in the paper was deemed not preferred. However, in my view, it's the most practical option given the infrastructure already exists down at Mackivor Reserve. And that would remove, the need to spend additional money and remove this piece of social recreation open space. So additionally, the proposal increases the number of nets from 3 to 5, increasing the space required on the social recreation space, and I think it also is going to give us a worse design outcome because where now we have a small open space that is open to Anderson Street, people who walk along there can very easily just stop in and use it, and they do. And then now we're going to have a set of 5 cricket nets that front Anderson Street just to have a look at. So instead of a nice shaded, seated area. The other thing I probably don't like about it is that it's proposed to replace turf cricket nets with synthetic cricket nets. We're in a climate emergency, and those the synthetic surfaces add to the urban heat island within our city. So I really want people to have a look at this because I think there's some things in there. I think there are some things missing from the council report, or that are that have been discounted as relevant or perhaps less important, but they're not important to me, and I know they're not important to a lot of people out there. So, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Thomas. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll now put the motion to a vote. I declare the motion carried. Move to agenda item 10.3, Raleigh Street Park Design. I call for Councillor to move a motion. Councillor Thomas.
That Council 1 endorse the release of the draft Raleigh Street Park Landscape Concept Plan shown at Attachment 1 for community engagement, and 2, request a further report and final concept plan for consideration following the community engagement process.
I call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Pereira. Are there any questions or points of clarification? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Just, briefly, I think, this has proved a successful investment by council since it was designed and built. I think there's a lot of people using it. We've got some good feedback from the community about how, a more permanent park could be designed. And I think this, the proposed design responds to that. There's sort of different options, there's different spaces within the site, and I only wish we were able to make it a bit bigger. So I hope people do enjoy looking at the designs and give us their feedback. Thanks.
Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
I think Councillor Thomas has said everything, but yeah, I think exciting opportunity to enhance this space, and I'm glad to see there's a good mixture of functions included given the tight footprint. There is a lot happening there, so I think it would be great to get an equally broad cross-section of the community giving feedback just to make sure that we've got all those elements right in and of themselves, and also in how they interact with each other in that space. And very excited to see it come to life and be made more permanent.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? That being said, I'll now put the motion to a vote. I declare the motion carried. Move to agenda item 10.4, Community Grants Program, Acquittal 2025, and Initiation 2026 report. I'll call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Lamb.
That Council, number 1, noted the outcome and impact of the 2024-25 Community Grant Program for project implemented in 2025. Number 2, endorse the update 26-27 Community Grant Guidelines shown at the Attachment 6. Number 3 is endorse the initiation of the 2026-2027 Community Grant Program. And number 4, endorse the recommended appointment to the Consolidated Independent Peer Panelist list.
Can I get a councillor to second the motion? Councillor Thomas. Are there any questions or points of clarification? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Just very briefly. Firstly, I would like to thank you to Director Maria Wies and her manager Melissa Edwards that working really hard on this community grant here, and congratulating the successful applicant. And we wish we have plenty of money to give to everybody, but however, that's not the case. So, but I really congratulating the successful applicant, and also thank you very much for independent. The panelists is also involved and working so hard for this project. Thank you. I move the motion.
Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Just to say, our community grants program is oversubscribed, or we have a lot more applications for funding than we can meet. But what our officers do afterwards is for those unsuccessful applicants, try and provide other types of support that's non-monetary support, which is a great thing because that can help to sort of build skills and capacity across our community. So, whether grants are funded or not, they still receive some kind of support from council. Our new independent panel of 12 looks like a very exciting list. There's some names on there that I recognise, and I know that we're in good hands with this group of people. They're highly experienced. They come with decades and decades, some of them many decades of experience in either community development or community engagement or sort of arts-based practice or management. So I think we're really lucky to have this group of people, and I'm really looking forward to how they will kind of assess the next round of grant funding to make recommendations for council.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Then I might say a few words. In the 2026, Councillor Yangi, my apologies.
Sorry, I'm a bit slow. I won't say much, just wanted to reiterate a little bit of what Councillor Bernadette's already said, but essentially just, wanting to thank all the community organisations in our community. As far as I'm concerned, community organisations are the lifeblood of our community, and they deliver a lot of services and programs to support our residents, and for that we're very grateful. And Bernadette's already mentioned, every year, at least over the last 3 or 4 years, as I've seen, just the number of applications, council's received for our community grants process has increased tremendously, and this just shows, the number of very engaged groups out there that are wanting to do a lot of programs for our community, and B, that there's potentially quite a significant community need out there for these programs as well. And that's one of the reasons why in this year's budget we're proposing increasing our grants by 55k, although we recognise it's still a very small amount, and we hope to identify other ways in which we could potentially expand our grants program over the next few years, because we know there's so many groups out there that are doing a lot of great work, and we would love to support them as much as possible. So thanks again to everybody, and please make sure you keep connecting with our staff, even if you aren't successful, and we'd love to work with you and see where there are other ways for us to support you better to be able to achieve the outcomes that you're looking to achieve.
Thank you, Councillor Yangi. Any other councillor want to speak to the motion? As Councillor Yangi had mentioned, we are proposing to increase the community grants program by 55,000 in the proposed budget, and community organisations contribute so much to our city. Many volunteers, people that have lived here for a long time, those that have just arrived, are giving back a lot of unpaid time, and it's because they love what they do. The majority of the projects, 59%, addressed the support and enable community connectedness and wellbeing focused area. 23% of funded applications were targeted at culturally and linguistically diverse communities. One First Nations-led application project was funded, and collectively, 8,899 people participated. 74% of participants worked, studied or volunteered within the City of Melbourne, showing the impact within the city, and there were strong outcomes. 75% felt more connected, 71% felt more able to participate in community life, and 76% strengthened local networks. So what we are supporting local organisations with, they are making use of every single dollar. We'll now put the motion to a vote. We'll now move to agenda item 10.5, appointment of the independent advisor to the CEO Employment Matters Committee. Thank you, Celia. I'll wait for CEO to leave the chambers. I'll call for Councillor to move a motion. Councillor Thomas.
That Council 1, note the comprehensive recruitment process undertaken in the role of independent advisor to the CEO Employment Matters Committee following the expression of interest process. 2, appoints the preferred candidate shown at confidential attachment 2 as the independent advisor to the CEO Employment Matters Committee for a 2-year period commencing 19th of May 2026. And 3, thanks the previous independent advisor for their significant contribution in supporting Council on matters pertaining to Chief Executive Officer Employment Matters.
I call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Lamb, are there any questions or points of clarification? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Just say a few things. This is an important, probably one of the most important committees that councillors can convene and sit on because the CEO is our only employee. So it's important that we get that decision right for our community, and also that we have that we receive, sound and contemporary advice about how to go through that process, but also how to work with the CEO effectively, and how to make sure that the CEO can grow in their role and continue to, be successful in their role over the length of their term here. So we've had a solid recruitment process supported by a member of the executive, and I'm pretty confident that the person that we've chosen as our new independent advisor will work well with the committee and provide us with really good advice. And also, the recommendation 3 is that we thank our former independent advisor, and Councillor Lamb and I have worked with him, I think, over 3 or 4 years. So, thank you for his service to assisting us, particularly to engage our current CEO, which has been a very successful, successful outcome. So, this is one of those important yet kind of lesser known committees that councillors convene. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. The second, I'd like to speak to the motion.
Very briefly, as Councillor Thomas already said, we go into the process and thoroughly that I am very confident that we pick up the right persons who have a lot of experience in that field. And, this is very, very important project to work on, and also with, we choose the best person that we're very happy and satisfied with.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? With that being said, we'll put the motion to a vote. I declare the motion carried. I'll now invite the CEO back into chambers. We'll now move to agenda item 10.6, governance report. I'll call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Thomas.
That council note the April 2026 governance report.
I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Meredith, are there any questions or points of clarification? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? We'll put the motion to a vote. I declare the motion carried. We now move on to our notices of motion. We have 2. Agenda item 11.1, notice of motion, Riverside Precinct Traffic Movement and Safety Report and Plan. I'll call for Councillor Samantha Meredith to move a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Just getting the font size right. Thank you. Notes that the Riverside Precinct in Footscray is experiencing increased residential density and movement pressures, with the Joseph Road Precinct, apartments and businesses, and the Heavenly Queen Temple to the north of Hopkins Street, apartments, houses, St Monica's Primary School, Footscray Community Arts to the south. 2, requests that a report be prepared for a future council meeting that outlines the necessary steps, considerations and resourcing and financial implications involved in developing a Riverside Precinct movement and safety report that is informed by the following information and a process of community engagement. A, advice from traffic engineers, including options to improve walking, cycling, public transport access, vehicle movement and safety across the Riverside precinct. B, a study that examines the Riverside precinct as a connected movement area, including local roads within Joseph Road precinct, north of Hopkins Street, local roads south of Hopkins Street and surrounding arterial road interfaces, including Hopkins Street, Whitehall Street and the Footscray Road entrance to Moreland Road. C, an understanding of key movement and safety issues across the precinct, including school access and safety, rat running and local street impacts, access and movement on local roads, signalisation and crossing options, arterial road interfaces and current and future walking, cycling, public transport and vehicle movements. And D, identification of relevant council and state government roles and responsibilities. 3, nearly there, notes that the outcomes of the report may be considered in future council budget processes, advocacy priorities and engagement with the state government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. I call for Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Pereira. Are there any questions or points of clarification? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Safety needs to be at the forefront of how the Riverside precinct area is planned. The Riverside precinct includes high-rise apartments within Joseph Road and the Heavenly Queen Temple, north of Hopkins Street, and apartments and houses at St Monica's Primary School on the south of Hopkins Street as well. So the area is it's already a busy area and it's a developing busy area as well. So the Riverside precinct is a high-density urban area with residential growth occurring on both sides. There's a lot of pedestrians, school, families, cyclists, public transport users, visitors and workers, through traffic and local traffic, all within that tiny little precinct there. This growth is changing how the local street network functions across the Riverside precinct. Streets that may have carried lower levels of local movement are now supporting a more complex mix of school access, Heavenly Queen Temple access, Footscray Community Arts access, apartment access, river access, Footscray CBD connections, cycling movements, bus movements and vehicle traffic. Hopkins Street and Whitehall Street are state-controlled arterial roads and carry significant through traffic. At the same time, these local streets are increasingly being used by people moving between home and school and work and all the other little bits there. So the whole entire area functions as a connected Riverside precinct. Decisions made at one intersection can affect the traffic and flow at another intersection. And it can also affect like the safety of pedestrians and cyclists and things like that. So the idea of this, the intent of this motion is to see the Riverside precinct planned as a whole movement area with community consultation, identification of council and state responsibilities, and options that can inform future council budgets, advocacy and delivery. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a tricky precinct because it's changed its primary use and is now very much a residential area, as well as maintaining a lot of other activities happening in this space. And so, but that means that we also can't just wait while there's still significant construction occurring. There are already people who are living there and they have been living there for a long time. And so we need to take a view to make sure that all of the amenity that we would expect in a place is up to standard. The integrated transport strategy, which will be coming out soon for discussion, takes a view around movement and place. And so I think there's one lens that we have to bring to this precinct, which is very much about it as a place and how it interacts in its discrete pockets, but then also how people move between the two. And we know that there are significant issues pre-existing, and while there are lots of great things happening in this pocket, it's really a challenge when it's too hostile to move easily amongst them. And so I think there's enormous potential to make this a really great space and to have it really connect very well to the rest of Footscray. We also have the new Veloway, and so there's still work to be done to enhance connectivity between the Veloway and the rest of Maribyrnong, and this precinct is essential in getting that right as well. So I think we've previously had local area management plan approach, and we've moved away from that, but this precinct really never had one because it has changed its context so drastically over recent years. And so I think it's an area in transition, and we need to do this work to make sure that we get the basics right, and then it can be integrated with the rest of the municipality.
Thank you, Councillor Perra. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll now put the motion to a vote. I declare the motion carried. Agenda item 11.2, notice of motion, Albert Street, Footscray. I call for Councillor Pradeep Tiwari to move a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. That Council 1 requests the Chief Executive Officer to prepare a report on the feasibility of reopening the closed section of Albert Street adjacent to the former Forges Dimmers site to public access, having regard to the strategic directions and long-term aspirations of the Footscray CBD Place Plan and the Footscray Structure Plan. 2, notes that the report is to be high-level and advisory in nature and is to address, to the extent practical, A, the legal status of the land, including whether it is a public road reserve. B, ownership of the bridge structure and associated responsibilities. C, any known encumbrances, rights or agreements affecting the site. D, high-level liability considerations associated with reopening the road with or without removal of the bridge. And E, indicative risks, opportunities and constraints relevant to potential future options, including alignment with adopted strategic planning objectives. 3, requests that the report include an options analysis, including A, long-term options, including removal of the bridge and full reopening of the road, consistent with the long-term vision for movement, connectivity and placemaking in central Footscray. B, interim or staged options where full removal is not immediately feasible, including opportunities for partial reopening, temporary access arrangements and traffic management measures. C, opportunities to enhance amenity and community outcomes, including tree planting, greening, urban activation and temporary interventions in line with the place-based priorities of the Footscray CBD Place Plan. And D, opportunities to improve connectivity, including potential cycling links and integration with the broader local transport network, consistent with the proposed structure plan movement objectives. 4, notes that the preparation of the report is subject to available resources and prioritisation within Council's existing works program, and that any requirement for external specialist advice, additional funding or further detailed investigation may be subject to a separate Council decision. And 5, notes that this motion does not commit Council to any future works, expenditure or implementation, and that any decision to proceed will be subject to further Council consideration, including through the budget process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tiwari. I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Lam. Are there any questions or points of clarification? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. So tonight I'm bringing the motion forward because I genuinely believe Footscray CBD needs bold thinking and practical action if we're serious about revitalisation. And I know that Council's already trying through different measures. But for far too long now, this section of Albert Street, adjacent to the former Dimmers and Forges site, has remained closed off, underutilised and disconnected from the broader activity of the CBD. Meanwhile, traders continue to struggle, connectivity is poor, and many members of the community feel parts of central Footscray have simply been left out. This motion is not asking Council to commit to expensive construction works, or not tonight anyway. It is not asking for millions of dollars to suddenly be spent. What I am asking for is Council to properly investigate whether there are practical, staged or interim options available to help reopen and reactivate this important part of Footscray. And importantly, this motion also looks at broader opportunities around greening, pedestrian amenities, cycling connectivity, activation and improving movement through the city centre overall. And if approved, this motion would also tie into the broader Footscray Place plan and revitalisation works already underway through Council, helping ensure any future improvements form part of a coordinated long-term vision for central Footscray rather than isolated decisions. Just for context, the bridge and the elevated walkway in this area were originally constructed many decades ago to directly support the operations of the former Forges and later Dimmies complex, when the site was an active retail and commercial destination attracting thousands of people into Footscray. However, the Forges and Dimmies operations on this site closed around 2009, and since then the site has remained largely dormant and underutilised for well over 15 years. I think it reflects a failure by the private owner to meaningfully activate such a significant site in the heart of our CBD. Many people waited years in hope of progress, activation or investment to occur, but unfortunately very little has materialised. And at this stage, I do not believe Council simply continuing to leave Albert Street closed indefinitely is helping the situation, nor do I believe properly investigating reopening the street is going to negatively impact a site that has not been activated in any meaningful way for years. I believe Council has a responsibility to at least investigate whether reopening and reconnecting this part of the CBD would help improve movement, activation, connectivity and confidence in central Footscray again. We cannot continue waiting forever for private outcomes while important parts of our city centre remain disconnected and stagnant. And for Footscray CBD, we need to start looking at what practical things are actually within Council's remit that may help improve activity, connectivity, safety and economic confidence in the area. And that's what this motion is about, starting that process properly and transparently. I sincerely hope all councillors can support this tonight so we can begin exploring what opportunities may exist for the future of Central Footscray. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tawari. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Seconder?
Thank you. I think Councillor Tiwari already mentioned a lot of detail about his motion, and I think I'm happy and to support this for investigation, further investigating more. And I mean, yeah, I really agree on that. The motion does not commit and council to do any further work expenditure or implementation, and that is, that is the important part of that. But we always want improvement of the Footscray CBD and surround in the Footscray to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lam. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Meredith.
Thank you. Yeah, I support council, the motion and council investigating and doing what council can. But again, as I was always said, the land banking there and the Forges site, I just think that that's disgraceful to be kind of having that for 15 odd years in the heart of a suburb and the negative impacts on the community. It's, yeah, we feel it deep. Thank you.
Any other councillor? So Councillor Engie.
Just briefly, yeah, like other councillors, in support of this motion. I know that it's drawn considerable community interest and, coupled with the interests of us as councillors who are doing as much as we can to try and revitalise Footscray collectively as well. So, any other additional steps that we can take to improve Footscray and improve outcomes in the area is welcomed.
Any other councillors?
Yeah, I mean, as the councillors will know, I've sent numerous emails and talked about this space over, I think, the whole time we've been on council, because I think it's a unique opportunity to do something significant, given that we have land banking in the precinct, and so we don't own that space, but we do own some of these urban road corridors, and so they're a great place for us to be able to do something different that we otherwise can't do. We've had numerous approaches by community to increase urban greening throughout Footscray, and so this is a space where we could add additional tree canopy and greening, water-sensitive urban design elements and other opportunities, as Councillor Tawari mentioned, with placemaking and activation and more comfortable movement throughout the precinct. We know that we've got a significant park associated with Creative West, but that we will still need more greening and green and blue amenity throughout Footscray to mitigate urban heat island and enhance livability. It's important that this process is integrated with the Footscray master planning process, which will also invite several phases of community consultation. So that will be an important opportunity for the community to contribute their aspirations to Footscray overall, and also with some of these little spaces throughout the precinct at a fine grain scale.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Then I'll just say a few words. I think reopening Albert Street is another important step in the revitalisation of Footscray, and will only add value as we continue to do considerable work for our CBD. And I think it needs to work with and be a part of the work that's happening right now, whether that be through this Footscray CBD place plan, as well as the longer term strategic work around the Footscray structure plan. But I do believe it is something the community has been calling for, and will only improve the connectivity throughout the city. I'll now put the motion to a vote. I declare the motion carried. We'll now move to councillor question time. Councillors, are there any questions? No questions. Councillors, are there any items of urgent business? Councillors, I advise there are no confidential business to be tabled at this meeting. That being said, thank you all so much. I declare the meeting closed at 7:40.